Beautiful believers, welcome to the Authentic Action Podcast, where we dive a little bit deeper into diverse stories of diverse lives with all sorts of people from all sorts of walks of life. Today's guest is a very interesting man who gets to speak to all sorts of people from different walks of life as well. And in fact, that is how we met. And we'll get into that story a little bit in the near future. But I wanted to let you know that he is a man of many talents and many interests. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about how he came to be living the life that he is living. Without further ado, I introduce Sean Kneese. All right. Welcome to the Authentic Action Podcast. I'm just going to dive right into today's episode with a brief introduction. And I'm really happy to have today's guest, who is an interesting friend of mine and an interesting person, and holds a special place in what would be the Hall of Fame for the Authentic Action Podcast, because if not for his 100th episode, I don't know that this podcast would exist in the form that it does. So I'm looking forward to diving a little bit deeper into your unique journey to where you are now, where you get to talk to all sorts of interesting people as well. Without further ado, let me introduce Sean Kneese. Thanks for joining me, Sean.
Yeah, thank you for having me again. And you were the 100th episode on my show, and then I was
Okay, and
the
then it was
first of yours.
101.
Yeah.
Right. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm only on 22, which, I've had lots of stalls, but it seems apropos in February of 2022. Somehow it's come around that I'm doing my 22nd episode now with you, and I'm feeling like it's like a neat porthole to a new life, breathing new life into this episode, or into this podcast rather. So I'm looking forward to seeing where that cascades to, as well as, like I said, I really would love to hear more about your personal journey, how you came to be where you consider yourself now, and we'll go forward from there.
Okay, so you want me to just start at the beginning, or you're gonna?
Sure, at the beginning of time. No,
Okay.
I'm particularly interested in you designing a life that's unique to you, and how you both decided, like, however much your background that you want to give, but in particular, how you have decided to and then designed a life that is unique in particular to you.
Okay. Well, it's always I guess it's always been like related to this, like media communications or entertainment. I'm an actor as well. I've been doing the podcast now since 2013.
Mm-hmm.
And it just started with seeing other podcasts and wanting to talk to interesting people. And at the time, in undergrad, I was studying film, and I was taking some journalism classes because I was still part of the communication field. And I like doing the feature stories where I ask questions and I brought the people out. And I just thought that maybe that's something I should do more of, and then it started with doing more interviews, and it kind of became more conversations where I bring the person out in the way I would do an interview. And I don't know, I've gotten to talk to a lot of interesting people, so that's good.
Yeah. Do you remember a time earlier in your life where you had a decision or a flash of insight about that you can look back and see like that was part of the process that led you into this communications oriented life?
I guess it was just like listening. I mean, I guess it's always been there. Like I was like doing podcasts, like even like out of high school and stuff. Like I did like a metal show, and like early when I was doing community college, we did one that like played in the cafeteria, like a radio show where we talked about metal. I don't know how many people heard it. I think it just like went to the cafeteria. And then yeah, and I guess like more in like 2012, I started like listening to a lot of podcasts and like seeing people put themselves out there, and it just seemed like it was another medium for people to express themselves, and a way to connect people. And that's like I like having a wide variety of like people from different backgrounds and walks of life, and then kind of finding the similarities and also appreciating the differences too.
Hmm. And did you just kind of start on your own as I did? I mean, did
Yeah,
you, wasn't
pretty
a
much.
class assignment or anything else, just kind of decided and then did it?
Yeah, it just kind of decided, and I started with people I knew, and then I kind of went from there, just like reaching out, and it got more and more prolific over time.
Hmm.
So,
That's cool. What number are you on these days? I did just look,
um,
but I can't remember. I
well, now it's about 130. It was originally like 137. It was probably originally more, but then there was a couple I took down that like didn't
yeah.
fit with like the direction I wanted to go with the show now, or like the quality wasn't the same. Um, so I just left in the ones that I thought fit with where I want to do now, because it's like it's been a long time of the show and like a lot of episodes. So like there were just a couple I didn't really thought fit with what I wanted to do now. So
Hmm. I have noticed, I haven't listened to all your episodes, but many I have over the years now, a couple years. And I have noticed that lately you're back to interviewing some really seems like a kind of a new wave of exciting, interesting people that you got going on. So that's cool.
oh yeah, it's been a lot, and I have another one I'm releasing I think next week that the record that I haven't released yet too. So that's good.
Neat, neat. Yeah. Well, so you still didn't really tell me anything about in your personal background, like even before performing, is there something that you feel like is again looking back, and maybe there isn't, but like where you see like, oh, this point in my life I decided to do this, or this driving, this inspiring or driving force is what has led me or enabled me to
You
come.
mean like with all the like in the arts and like the
Yeah,
field of
well,
it?
so your
Yeah,
podcast,
yeah.
which we could talk about and at least introduce in BSing with Sean Kneese, and one of the things about it that caught my attention is your one of your taglines. I'm not sure if you call it, but talking to people who live outside the box, and so that aspect of, we might call it interesting people or unique people who aren't conforming to all the standards of the norm mainstream, which I think makes for extra interesting conversations. But I wonder if there was, yeah, a point where you consciously made that decision and then look back and see how that was in the works, or that's just how it unfolded for you, I guess.
I mean, I guess like in high school, like being in a punk band, and then I was in like a punk band outside of high school and doing like grindcore. Like we talked to a lot of people around the world, like doing that similar style. Like no matter what the culture was, they were part of this subculture, and I just thought
Hmm.
it was like I don't know. I guess that got me in the line of thinking like there's people that don't. There's people from like all over the world that like don't are out of the box or like doing their own thing and not like
Hmm.
conforming to the world around them. And it's I guess I just wanted to show like the individual throughout the world, like no matter what environment, like people who kind of went their own way.
Yeah. Yeah. Punk music is definitely got a lot of that vibe in it. How long
Yeah.
have you been playing music, if you don't mind my asking?
Well, I mean, I was doing it since I was 13, and then I kind of fell out of it and went more into like acting and like filmmaking, like the stuff I got interested in after high school. But then well, actually, like late more like later college and stuff like that. Like once I figured out like what route I wanted to go and stuff.
Hmm.
But yeah, now recently, like the past few years, I've been back into music again, and I'm playing with a band again. It's like another outlet, doing like instrumental music, and we're adding some music with songs too. And I have my own project, and I'm kind of merging some songs from that project into this band now too. So
Yeah. See, all of that is what I really am fascinated by, because I have some of that too, Sean, but I don't know that like a lot of humanity doesn't seem to, as you and I have talked, outside of this. And I feel like whatever that, maybe it's freedom, that willingness to try different things and just be true to your own internal navigation system. I don't know that there is an answer, but I'm trying to dig a little bit to see, what comes up as far as maybe a way that other people can cultivate more or feel freer to do that in their own lives.
Or to just express themselves. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And so was there an influence? Like, did you just feel that as long as you've known, or was there someone in
I
your
guess
life that inspired you to, or gave you permission, so to speak, when you were younger, to say you can, be your unique true self and you don't have to always conform to what other people are doing?
I guess I don't know, maybe I had a hard time conforming to what people
Right.
were doing. So maybe that's just was more my nature. Like I don't know. Like I usually like had a hard time like staying in class, or kind of like, I don't know, I would like make a scene, or I just was, I think I was just more naturally like, I had to do more effort to not to conform a little more to than I had to not conform, I guess.
Yeah, I can certainly relate to that. I would
Yeah.
say similar for me. Yeah. Not sure I had a choice, but as far as not conforming. Anyway, thank you for sharing a little bit. I'm not trying to over pry. I just really am curious. And
Yeah.
I think it's interesting for us all to hear, our various ways that we come to that conclusion for ourselves, that it's okay to live as your authentic self, whoever that is. It's beautiful that we are different.
Yeah, and I guess it's like in my family and stuff, like both sides. Like my dad writes, and my mother's like singer actress, and then like some people on her side are into the arts. I guess it's just kind of like in the genes and stuff. And yeah,
And you saw examples of that growing up. Yeah.
yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah. So, what are you into currently that is exciting in your life?
I mean, doing video editing work. I'm glad to finally be doing some work that's like kind of related to like what I studied in school and stuff. Like for a nonprofit, editing videos and editing their podcasts, and I want to do more like work with that. I guess I'm trying to focus on what will make me like money first, and then kind of the other stuff I can kind of do as I go. Like I have a film I'm writing that I want to shoot, and I want to get people to act in it, and I want to play a part in it as well. But like that, like I want to, like that's kind of like a thing I'm doing on the side while I try to, like I'm doing the thing that's making money now, but like I want to, like that's what I want to put the number one focus on, is like the thing that where this kind of in my field and in my interest that can make money, and then the other stuff I can kind of do, like I could, then it's easier to fit in the other stuff, like that, like that's that film I want to shoot, and I do the band, and that's more of like just another creative outlet. So I've learned to compartmentalize, I guess, the different things. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool that you're getting paid to develop that editing skill, and that as you hone in on that filming project for yourself, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, yeah, I have my 3 questions question, but I am curious if you want to share like your favorite or most interesting interview, or maybe epiphany that you've had during interview in the maybe during the pandemic specifically, since that's been pretty interesting ride for everybody.
Oh, like a favorite interview.
Yeah, either something that stands out, or maybe specifically something that you had an epiphany, like that has stuck with you, that as something you learned, or something that stood out in one of your interviews. I know I'm hitting you right off the cuff with no warning, so
Oh, that's fine. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely been a lot of them.
I was gonna say I'm sure there's more than one answer, but if something comes to mind that you feel like you want to share.
Yeah. Hmm. I mean, the recent one I did about with my friend who I've had him on a couple of times. Luke Yun was talking about growing up in Cambodia and everything. Well, like he's actually his parents were missionaries from the U.S. and like he's of indigenous descent, and then his parents went there to like um to Cambodia, and he grew up there, and like he being a writer and stuff. Some of his stories was interesting, and
Yeah.
yeah, I'm trying to yeah, and just like talking to people from like different parts of the world that like finding commonality with them and
Mhm.
like staying in touch and keeping a rapport. Um, like Malak was another guest to have. She's from Gaza and now she's in like school in Turkey doing like art. She does like Picasso influence painting, and she grew up like during like war and stuff like that. Very different experience than I had, but like I feel like I've kept in touch with her and we've connected on some things like being like creative people and stuff like
Mhm.
that. And I like her work of like the Sufi dancers she's done,
Yeah.
and yeah.
It is cool how we have so much in common, even with so
Yeah.
many differences, I think. And now that we're able to discover that with
Yeah.
more and more means of connecting, that's cool.
Yeah, and I've liked the episodes I've done, the kind of like there was one I did with Joseph Mauricio, who's a meditation teacher, and he's into comedy, and he talked about like mental health and comedy, and
Mhm.
also there's been others. There's been, oh yeah, the UFO, the guy was it Alan Tafoya? He's an actor, and he saw like a UFO on his reservation, on his
Yeah.
the Apache reservation. I think he saw that one. Yeah.
Yeah. That one did catch my attention because it's near where I live. So yeah. And I've heard other people talk about that. So very interesting. I have to put these back on so I can see a thing. Oh, there you are. Yeah. So what are your hopes for moving forward with the podcast?
I mean, I want to continue to do it because I like it's always a good way. It's always like a consistent thing I could do. I enjoy it. I enjoy like talking to different people. I want to get it out there more. Um, and but I know like a lot of the podcasters I know they're kind of known through like something else, and then the podcast. Like I don't know. It's there's very few podcasters where like the podcast is the one thing that takes off and makes them famous. Or like makes the career out of it. So it's usually something they're doing on the side is something else they
A
get known
book, a
for.
book is the popular way I
Yeah.
noticed, I think, or there's other means,
Yeah.
I'm sure, but
Or like Mark Maron was like a comedian and actor
yeah,
and stuff. And then yeah.
that's something that comes up a lot, and we've talked a little about, and you just mentioned, and I've been thinking a lot about again, is comedy, and you mentioned it in the context of mental health, and I think just health in general, because of course mental and physical, all the wellness is all intertwined, but I wonder if you have experienced or if you would agree in all your interviewing of people now that comedy seems to play a really big role in both in people's health and management, but maybe also in that creative piece of becoming free, like in the evolution of becoming
Yeah.
feeling free enough to express yourself. There seems to be
Yeah.
a connection to
Well, and
comedy.
it helps connecting too. It helps like it helps the other person feel comfortable if you add a little humor. And because
Yeah.
it used to be more like, oh, reading questions from a list, like very serious. Now I try to always like joke and be light, like no matter who I'm talking, even if it's a serious topic we're talking about, because then it can have more of like a conversational kind of
Hmm.
friendly tone. And I think that then that kind of gets people to listen more too and all that.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, there's actually quite a bit of research in the educational field where I have some background about using humor to open, like if a person is clamped down and feeling heavy and argumentative, they're not going to learn anything, so the first step is to lighten and open the mind, and comedy is one of the quickest ways to
yeah.
do that. Yeah, you have a fair amount of background in some comedic endeavors. Am I right?
Oh yeah, like improv. I haven't done stand up. I've done improv. I've done and I've done like some films where I did comedic acting.
Mm-hmm.
Like and I did like a voiceover where I did like a comedic role and like a different kind of voice. But no stand up yet. I don't know if I'd try that at some point, but
Yeah, I notice you say yet, and I hear that a lot. So do you have,
yeah.
you kind of want to, but
Yeah.
don't feel quite ready to, or
Yeah, I mean, it definitely wouldn't ever be something I'd pursue as a main thing, but just another, to try it as an outlet or
mm-hmm,
like that's how I've learned because I've always had interest in like multiple outlets and multiple things, not just one. So the way I've learned to organize myself better is prioritize one and like or even prioritize like one or two,
mm-hmm,
and then the rest you can kind of fit in on the side. Like, but you see, there's a lot of people like in media and stuff that don't just do one thing. That's it. Like I was David Lynch was just the one that came to mind. Like he's a filmmaker, but he started as a painter and now he also does music, like music he puts out there. So
mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I too have many mediums. If I could put it at just one like creativity basket, if if I
Yeah.
have to title it one thing, it's being myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have thought of because like making like at some point this would be further down the road and I would need like a bigger audience. The BSing network, like making a podcast network, kind of like um but that would be like I would have to like establish that a bit more.
Mhm.
But that's another goal I've thought of is like making a podcasting network with other podcasts with the
Yeah.
BSing too.
I like the format. BS, it has a freedom to it, which is ever more appealing to me, which is just a conversation between two human beings
Yeah,
without, necessarily any other big agenda. I think is valuable to us all. So, yeah.
yeah,
Thank
and
you
that,
for
and that
sharing
seems
that.
there seems to be a lot of like people seem to be more and more drawn to that these days too.
Yeah, there's less and less authentic, deep
Yeah,
conversation
yeah,
going on, it seems like. So, yeah. Yeah, again, I think thank you for holding, for doing that. And I think I didn't realize a couple years ago how it was going to seem to be trending, toward I don't know that it's harder to find because at the same time there's more and more of us who are free to do it, but still there's um yeah, seems to be a lot more shorter sound bites. So at least me personally, I really do value the longer form, just
yeah,
authentic conversation. So
yeah. Well,
that's
it's
what I
also
try
like
to do.
I mean, people spend like, but then at the same time, like people like they watch longer things too. Like they watch longer Netflix shows and stuff that has more like character development and like. I mean, I just think there's also like there's people have short attention spans, but it's like just in like different mediums. There's there is like a market for like things that require like a longer attention span, I guess is what it would be.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree with you. Yeah, we
yeah,
just have more choices, and so I think we figure it out what we prefer, and it is
yeah,
awesome that we can
yeah.
do a seven
But then it's like
second
everybody's in
clip.
their own, like nobody's getting the same information, but like people are in echo chambers, so it's kind of like everybody's living in their different realities. So it's like it's hard to find. I guess now I'm thinking like world issues stuff like that. It's like it's hard to find common ground sometimes with people because they're getting a totally different like narrative and perspective, and like you talk to someone else, they're getting a totally different. There's just so many different
Yeah,
ones. It's like it's harder to find like it's hard to get beyond that sometimes because everybody's just in their own echo chamber. So
yeah. I think that's an excellent point because there's for me, just reflecting on that now, there's a perception that because I'm able to see more and more people and connect to more and more people that I'm getting a broader perspective. But at the same time, I am more and more in my own, literally in my own bubble in this box. And so I'm actually getting, a narrower and narrower lens
yeah.
perspective on the
Well, I guess
individual.
because like even if it's like people that may be different in some way, like yeah, there has to be some kind of I guess like way they resonate with you in
Hmm.
some way, one way or another. Otherwise, yeah,
Yeah. Hmm. Nice.
yeah.
Well, let's see. What would you say has been one of the biggest challenges for you in your endeavor to stay true to doing you and being authentic in that way?
I guess because I guess like, well, and it's something I've developed through the podcast, and learned to be a better conversationalist and through improv. It's just like I feel like a lot of ways conversation didn't always come naturally to me.
Hmm.
Like I feel like when I was younger, when I tried to make a conversation with someone, it would be like an interview. Like I would just ask questions that, and a lot of times like even certain things I'd say a joke or something like, and it would sound serious. Like sometimes what I'd say wouldn't match my tone.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, I don't know how accurate this was that like when I was 13, they said I was like on the autism spectrum, but I definitely have some kind of thing like that where that's like what didn't come to me naturally, but that's also why has made me more self-aware and kind of like how I interact with people. And it's been something I've kind of had to teach myself a bit more. And I feel like that's kind of helped me become a better communicator since it was like something that I kind of had to learn. And I just feel like I've learned how to kind of not just be rigid and be like, okay, because before it was just like I can only talk if we stay on this topic and we talk about this. But now I'm more like flexible and I'm able to go into all these different directions that I didn't expect. Like improv helped a lot with that, and just like talking to a lot of people on the podcast. So
Hmm. Yeah, I've heard in some of your interviews, and it seems to be a very prevalent topic, attention, or um, our struggles with our attention. And I heard an interesting talk lately where she talked about using either like the flashlight of focus or the floodlight of focus, and then how that plus our she called executive, like our juggler, and those three work together, and we all have a different balance. But I think um in some ways when you get a label or a diagnosis earlier on, and or just that challenge, it does lead to earlier on learning how to
yeah,
navigate those aspects of our attention in a way that serves us well. So yeah.
yeah. It's just and it's interesting because like a lot of people like with being on the spectrum, they usually think of like science, math. Like I'm not good at like those topics at all. Like even now with like when people give strong opinions about science stuff, I'm just kind of like for me, it's more like if it's something about human rights or something like that, I can give a strong opinion. But if it's like a science thing, I'm just kind of like whatever. I'm not a scientist. Like
Mhm.
I that's just something like I don't know, because for me, my obsession was always something in the arts, or it was like a show, or it was something creative. Like, because that's like a thing of being on the spectrum is like you fixate on one thing. Sometimes it was really random stuff. Like as a kid, I'd focus on. I watched Celebrity Death Match like again and again. I know that's a really random show to be obsessed with, but like I remember I used to like tape every episode and like watch it like 100 times and
Right.
stuff like that. Yeah,
And now I have to be careful or my mind will spin off to all the things I've obsessed
yeah,
over in my childhood. So yeah, no, and I think so many of us, maybe if maybe we're one of that 1 in 10 person or 1 in 15 person who's atypically wired, or whatever label
yeah,
fits. But I do think that like kind of the bottom line is that there's diversity within any spectrum of and it comes down to learning how to develop a functional life for yourself that you can enjoy and make it work for you, whatever that is. So I think you're doing an excellent job. I think yeah, we need more arts and humanity and comedy. From my perspective, can't really have too much. So probably more math and science too. I'm not opposed to math and science. I like both.
yeah. That's actually like I think it's like people always focus on being perfect or being born like oh this way no, but I feel like it's our imperfections that kind of make us into who we are. Like it also can be our greatest strength. Like our weakness, what we think are our weaknesses can be turned around and made into a strength because that's something you have to learn and like adjust to. So
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with you there. I think that's really a super key for me. That's the beautiful thing we each have to offer in this life, is that unique thing that one might call a flaw or a challenge, but really it's it's your superpower.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah. So speaking of superpowers, if you had 3 super wishes and one had to be for you personally, and there's no limit, like literally they were like from where's Superman from? I suddenly forgot. Anyway, from outer space somewhere with superpowers, you have 3 wishes with no ramifications, just exactly in the perfect way. But one has to be for you, one has to be for humanity at large, one has to be for your podcast. I'm gonna get tricky with it. And
Okay, yeah, because I was thinking of one that was kind of included the podcast, so I guess I'll include
well,
that in the
perfect.
podcast.
Then you preempted me anyway. What would your 3 wishes be?
Okay, well, for the podcast, and I guess this would be like career in general, like since we're like thinking wish for anything,
Yeah.
if I could somehow do just the podcast and then other projects, maybe like if I could be making a good living just doing the podcast and then just whatever other project I want to be a part of, that'd be great. And
Have
just
the
like doing other
podcast be your main thing, huh?
yeah,
Yeah.
and then like do other like acting projects, or if I wanted to do like, a YouTube channel and just kind of do that like creative stuff and just make good money doing that, that'd be great. So
all right. So successful bill paying success for the podcast.
Yeah, just doing everything I like, doing what I enjoy, but getting money doing it. So
yeah, I'm torn as to whether to count that as your personal super wish or your podcast super wish, so you get to decide on that one.
Yeah, I guess the personal super wish, I guess to even be I guess to even be like an even greater communicator, maybe like, and also maybe learn, I guess maybe be more of a person who can bring people out and make people feel comfortable, and be more of a, I guess, person who can bring joy and fun and that to people. So
Cool. I'm suddenly like, ooh, any language. That would be a cool super wish. That might be a lot. Cool. And how about for humanity at large, if we're even worth a wish right now? No, I'm just kidding.
I wish people to like empathize more with like people that don't look like them, or don't come from like the same culture or like background as them, because I feel like a lot of times people only empathize with people that are kind of like them, and it's harder for them to empathize with people that are not so much like them. So I just think more listening to each other and empathizing with people that are different from you, or at least on the surface different, I think is a good thing.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. Yeah, not just looking for similarity, but appreciating our differences. And yeah, I agree with that. That's beautiful. Yeah. So what are your future promotional things? Anything else that you want to share with an audience tonight? Or perhaps there's a topic that you're hoping to get into.
I mean, I feel like we covered a lot of good stuff. Promotion for the podcast. I mean, I'm kind of doing it on top of other work. I'm continuing to do it. And I'm putting it out there on social media, but like with a podcast, like I'm doing it, a lot of it for the joy of it too. So like,
Well,
but if I could
tell us the detail. Tell us the BSing with Sean. Give us the place to find you and that sort of thing.
BSing with Sean K is on Spotify or iTunes. Also, if you Google BSing with Sean K, there's my blog, bsingwithseank.blogspot.com, and there's also my main site, SeanKneese.com, and which I'm currently adjusting. I'm making a video editing reel and putting it on there, and audio editing, kind of all the different like skills I have on there. So
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I interrupted you, so if you can remember where you were before I did that.
Yeah, like I guess I guess the thing with like doing a podcast or like anything creative like that is you got to learn how to. It's only something you can really like do or pursue if it's something you enjoy without any kind of reward. Like if I had the whole focus of the podcast was I want to make this the biggest podcast, then I would have stopped years ago and I would have not had all the interesting experiences I had. So like for me, it was just always something that like I felt I needed that was inside me to do, and I just wanted to connect with interesting people, and I just like telling people stories, learning from them, and I feel like I learned something new from every guest, and it always enhances my perspective or teaches me something I didn't think of before. So,
Hmm. Yeah, I can relate to that. Do you have a personal story that's a favorite these days that you would like to share with us?
I mean, I know I shared some of them. Um, hmm. Trying to think recently. I guess I can't think of one like right now, but yeah,
That's fine. I know I
yeah,
just put you on the spot. I'm trying to get
that's okay.
better at putting people on the spot. So
Yeah,
how am I doing?
oh, pretty good.
All right. Um, well, yeah, I've been working on my personal story, so I think that's why it's on my mind. But I think, yeah, you get to hear other people's personal stories so much. You probably have you know, like one of these days, if you ever wanted to write a book, or well, you mentioned that you're blogging, but I imagine that there's just a whole
Yeah.
plethora of great stories.
Yeah, I mean, I like the one DJ. I mean, um, he goes by DJ Pat Pervert. His Pasquale Santoro. Like, I like that experience of interviewing him in Otto's Shrunken Head about like his punk rock DJ night, and just like the whole story he went through with like being in a band and then getting depressed and then falling back into DJing and finding like what he depressed when the band broke up and then finding himself again through like the DJing and just like interesting stories like that. And I know that I know there's been like others like too, like the one that I did about the Epstein where I brought on Caitlin Copenhaver. She's like a photographer. We talked about like like she does a project where she goes like does photography related to different locations, kind of related to the whole Epstein thing. And I know that like Facebook like it wouldn't let me promote a certain post, and like I had some trouble with that, like them trying to take down that episode. Like, so I don't know, it just made me feel important that they tried to like take that down. Like, I guess there was some people that didn't want stuff about Epstein out there, so I don't
Yeah, it's
know.
interesting. I've had it's interesting when we feel like we're being censored, the push to
Yeah,
it's like I feel that will push. I've recently had some waves of that. It
yeah, like
doesn't feel
it's
good
easy
to
for
feel
people to say, oh,
censored.
we should deplatform this person or we should, but like I've said that, like I've gotten political and stuff on my or said things that were like criticizing like the establishment or things, and I might not agree with like other people, or I might think even what someone's saying is maybe harmful in some ways, but it's like someone could say the same thing about me, like in what I say if I have a contra. So it's like I don't know, it's like you say like, oh, you want this person's platform to be taken away or you don't want them to say what they're saying, but then it's like then you allow that they could do the same to you. So
Yeah, I think it's super important that we allow for imperfection, so to speak, even
yeah,
within, both just different perspectives, but also even if you're to, as the buzzword is misinformation lately, like that needs to be, we need to be able to be wrong, from my opinion. And also context matters, heavens, like why I love just a good conversation, because we should be able to explore things. I like to process things externally, as do a lot of humans. And if we can't talk about things, how are we going to form
yeah.
opinions about
Well,
them, right?
and if you're having, and if someone's ignorant, like how is that person ever going to learn to not be ignorant unless you have a
Right.
conversation with them and try to help them see things a different way, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think, and we should be allowed to overcome our own ignorance and then form our own opinions.
Oh, now I just thought of another story I like, and it relates to what I just said.
Uh-huh.
My friend Gabriel, he's like he's from Brazil, and
Mhm.
he came here to pursue acting and singing, and just like his story of like how he saved up. He grew up in a favela and like he saved up to travel and everything, and Yeah, I just remember and I also just remember there was a woman at work that like said something ignorant about like people from Brazil, and I remember I said, oh well, maybe you should look at this podcast I did, like
Mhm.
maybe it'll give you a different perspective. Like she'd see someone, like hear someone's story of someone who's from there, then maybe that would like kind of change your mind,
Mhm.
like or
Which
not
it
change your mind,
does.
like get her to think. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, expand your awareness a little bit. It's amazing
yeah,
what one human story can do for us, where we
yeah,
see our commonalities and our differences and go like, oh, because commonly we struggle. All the details might vary, but we're still all struggling in our own ways, I feel like, in this life. So
yeah.
mhm. Yeah, well, thank you for sharing and digging up some stories. Is there any other topics that you want to get into and explore?
I mean, I did think of how like how in some ways, I mean, I know there's a lot of well, I mean, I guess it's like any kind of profession, like there's that, there's that, I guess there's the idea like, but I was just thinking like acting, in a way, like to be a good actor you have to like be able to put yourself in people's shoes, like be empathetic to become that other person. Like if this person thinks totally different or even does things that are wrong, if you're like playing a villain, like I know that the villain's like the extreme, or just it's someone you disagree with, but like what are in their mind, they're not the villain, like what is the reasons for ending up this way. And um I was just thinking like acting in general, like it requires you to be more empathetic. I know, like, but I was gonna say, I know a lot of people say like, oh, a lot of actors are narcissists. That's like kind of like the con, like that's like I guess like a, I don't know if stereotype's the word, but like that's like a common belief like some people have. But like I think like to like you kind of have to really like if you're really like into it, like put yourself in another person's shoes, or I mean, and
Mhm.
draw from your own experiences too. But like I mean,
Yeah.
there's different methods to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I recently reviewed some old classic stories and was reminded how some of the recently banned books, which is a kind of exciting topic in and of itself, but how important it is to be able to explore characters. Often we do that through fantasy or through, acting out a story. And then to see which characters you identify with. For me, at least, I usually can identify with pretty much every character in a story to some extent, but often there's, most of us like to identify with the hero more than, more often than not, but still, a good villain, most of us can identify with that too. And I think a good story allows us to identify with all those different kind of archetypes or pieces where, um, yeah, I
Well, because everybody's the hero, like in their own story. They might seem like the villain. Like
yeah,
I remember, at least when I was a kid, like I used to think like I used to have a kind of a, I mean, because that's kind of how I was raised. Like how most of us like were raised was like like the more black and white view. Like everything America does is right, and America's the good guys, and like these other countries like they like don't share interests. Like this is the bad guy. This is the. But then, like as I got older, I started to realize, well, to the other country's perspective, it's like America's being the bad guy, and like they're doing it's just like, I don't know, the world isn't like a black and white
yeah,
place. Like, yeah,
I agree. To me, there's a lot of nuance and a lot of
yeah,
context, but I see how the simplicity of black and white serves some lives well too. But
yeah. It's more of like the grayness of with that of like Game of Thrones than
mhm.
like the just like the Dark Lord versus the good of Lord of the Rings. Yeah,
Yeah. I've been literally just gotten to a book about how color is so important and psychologically, the effect of color versus grayness in our capacity to be more empathetic and just feel like we're
yeah.
living a
Well,
more
there was
joyful
also
life.
like that cultural thing of like, like like the dark, like the black is represents bad, white represents like good, and that probably played into like a lot of racism in history too. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of
yeah,
goes on and on, all those little
yeah,
aspects. But and I
yeah,
again, I don't think there's one answer or one right way, but I think it's so important to have conversations about those kind of topics and not make them so taboo or so rigid that we can't talk about them freely at the risk of saying something that maybe later will be like, you know what, that was, I disagree with myself later. Like that should be okay, I think.
Yeah. We
But
should be allowed to have a right to be wrong.
yeah,
That's
yeah. In our like
definitely.
shouldn't, that doesn't mean like I'm
Yeah.
trying to ruin something or someone to
Yeah.
be able to have a
Well, and if you
conversation.
censor someone, that just shows all they say is like, well, I must be right if you're trying to shut me
Yeah,
down for what
that's
I said.
just like to
Yeah.
me that's propagating like ignorance or this smaller, just smaller and smaller framework of thinking where you're not allowed to consider things.
Yeah.
Anyway, I shan't go down that rabbit hole any further. I know we're all feeling so much pinch of all the changes, various just all kinds of exciting changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only constant thing, change.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
So what are you most excited about in your near future endeavors?
I guess, well, yeah, I guess just getting back out there more, and just like trying new things more, because like, with Omicron things were a little slow. Also, getting back into the podcast again. And I like that I'm, seem to have my career is starting to pick up with this production, like video editing, audio editing. Like I seem to have a future kind of with that. And then establishing that, I can kind of fit in the other things more. So I just feel like I'm on a good path moving up. So that's good.
Mhm. Yeah, you energetically, like you got a firm footing, your feet feel firm on the ground again. You have that
Yeah.
sense about you to me, so that's cool.
Well,
Yeah, nice. Well, why don't you give us the details about where to find you again, and then if you want to give us a parting.
oh yeah, I gave it before, but I guess I could. Yeah, BSing with
Yeah.
Sean K, Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcasts. It's on other things like Anchor and stuff. I believe, or Anchor. I don't know if you.
Mhm.
That's but
I'll put a
also
link down
YouTube.
too.
The
Yeah.
videos on YouTube. You can watch like the talking face to face, or just on my blog or my website, bsingwithseank.blogspot.com. That's like the main source of the feed. And then there's Kneese.com,
Okay.
which is kind of like my all-in-one site, which I'm currently working on some more now.
Cool.
And
I'll put links in the description, but I just wanted to get your audio versions out there too.
nice. And yeah, well, thank you for having me on again. It was good to return to the show, and I've had you on my show, so maybe at some point I'll have you on my show again. So
I'd love that. And yeah, thank you for helping inspire me to just leap out into the unknown myself. I really do appreciate it. And yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah, I guess because you said that your show, I helped inspire the show in some ways too. Like, and someone else told me that another show I was on recently, the Django show, like that's what my friend was telling me, like, oh, like look at what you've done. Like you told me you had 2 different podcasts you inspired. So
yeah, I mean, think about the ripple effect of all of that.
yeah.
It's pretty astounding when you start to think about it. So do you have a parting advice for somebody who might be doubting their own unique path, or their impulse to follow their own desires to do whatever it is, regardless of how out of the box it might be?
Well, I guess the advice I could think of is kind of like was actually mentioned in the last episode I did, and that was another interesting one I did with the guitarist of my band, where she talked about like she does art as well as guitar, about like art with animals and their place in the modern world. That's the one with Angela Graham. You should check that out. But we talked about how like starting, it doesn't matter if you don't have everything, like if you have like a great setup or anything to start whatever you want to start. Like for me, like when I started the podcast, I had kind of like, a shitty mic and stuff, and like just like it wasn't the best quality, but now like slowly I built up the booth, and it's like just start. Don't think like I got to get this, I got to get that to get started. Just start, and even if it's like not where you want to be at first, that's how you learn. You just improve, and yeah.
Excellent advice. Yeah.
Like,
thank you. Well, thanks, Sean. I really appreciate you coming on and talking with me, and I look forward to talking to you into the future, seeing what we both do. So
yep, sounds good. Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. That wraps up today's episode of the Authentic Action podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you enjoyed that conversation with Sean Kneese. Be sure to check out his podcast, BSing with Sean K. I will put a link in the description to that, as well as his website. And while I'm thinking of that, be sure to also check out our sponsor, Sleeping Dragons Company. You can find lots of wonderful things, including natural aromatherapy blends, natural essential oil perfumes over in our Etsy shop. You can get there via sleepingdragonsco.com. That will also be in the description. Thanks for stopping by. And until next time, stay free.